but
Oh no.
I'll tell you when I get started. It's all yours, Denise.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. First, I'd like to welcome everybody to Rabbi's annual book review that he does every year in honor of Jewish Book Month. Before we begin, I would like to highlight a wonderful resource for all of us of books of Jewish interest. Some of you may be aware of it, but it's the Jewish Book Council. And they have so many recommendations, reviews, articles. It's just a great resource. It's jewishbookcouncil.org. And I urge you to check it out. It has both fiction and nonfiction titles, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. But tonight, we will travel back to the Atlantic City of 1934 and the secrets kept by one Jewish family. Please join me in welcoming Rabbi Pearlstein as he once again provides us with his keen insight on this year's book, Florence Adler Swims Forever.
Great, thanks, Denise.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Those are the nicest words ever said before a book review. That's so sweet. Thank you. Listen, ladies, I am really happy being with you all tonight. Though I do have to confess that I'm missing my delicatessen sandwich tonight, which has become a tradition in our book reviews. And I'm even missing more seeing you live and in person. So let's just hope that, we're all vaccinated and we'll be back soon so that, sooner than next year at this time, we can all be together in the synagogue. I sure hope so. I sure hope so. So, I guess we're officially getting started now, and I'd like to show you something on the screen. And if any of you recognize who this person is, then you can take a guess at it, or any of you know who this is?
Esther Williams.
It's a good guess. It's a good guess.
Is that the girl that died? The real one that died?
It's a good guess.
Gertrude Ederle?
It's a great guess.
Of the movie
No one, I'm afraid that
America.
no one will get it, but let me just tell you, I felt very uncomfortable the past couple of days since I downloaded this onto my iPhone, going around with these pictures in my iPhone. I always have a concern, what happens if something happens and somebody's going through my iPhone and they're saying, well, why does he have these ancient pinup girls in his phone? What are they doing there?
Are they American, those girls?
Are they American? I dare say they are American.
Okay.
I believe even Jewish. I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Are they Miss America pageant?
Americans.
Best
All people.
I'll give you a hint, and then we're going to have to get into the book review sooner or later.
One more
Can't put it
guess.
off forever.
One more guess. One more guess.
Yeah,
Bess
so,
Meyerson?
no.
Bess Meyerson, yeah.
Let me give you a
Yeah.
hint. It's only fair. I believe this is in the 1930s. I believe this is in the 1930s.
They diving horse girls.
Not that I know of. I don't know that she ever dived on a horse. Possible, but improbable. Okay, here we are. So I just want to reset my yeah. So I have you now on gallery so I can see all of you, and you're all like as close to me as you could possibly be. So I'm just going to ask you, please, please, please try not to doze off tonight, because here you are, you're right here in front of me. I can see you, right? So, okay, here we are. So we're doing the book Florence Adler Swims Forever. It's Rachel Beanland's first novel. I just want to start with one complaint that I have about this book. It's really it's a serious complaint. And once I was able to get past this one issue that I have with the book, I was able to deal with the book as a whole. but I had to get over this one issue, and it will otherwise be for me the elephant in the room. So I really need to share this complaint with you about this book. It happens near the beginning of the book. There's a rabbi in the story. Do you remember the rabbi?
Yeah.
And here's how the rabbi is described. The rabbi whom the congregation hired 5 years ago was only adequate. You know, why are rabbis always described that way? Do you know, I can't remember something where a rabbi was incidentally part of a story and they said, and he was deeply loved by his community, and he was a great scholar, and he was a great counselor and pastor. No, no, no. This is atypical, right? And I wish in her first novel, Rachel would have, gone farther than the old cliche, hired 5 years ago, was only adequate. Who wants to be only adequate, right? Somebody said to you, well, you're adequate, and even worse, you're only adequate. So, okay, that's my complaint. Otherwise, I really have no complaints about the book at all. When I started reading the book, I was asking myself the question, why did she write this book? Why did she write this book? And the reason why I was asking myself the question is because, okay, she was reminiscing about Atlantic City of the 1930s, but it didn't really make, for me at least, Atlantic City really come alive. Covington Hotel was before my time, though I do remember Steel Pier and Million Dollar Pier, but they didn't really come alive for me within the book. And there was the beach and there was the water, and it's still there. The beach and the water, and the city is still there. I don't know how long that'll be with this global warming business, but there wasn't anything great within the description of the city, of what was going on. So I really thought to myself, why write this book? Well, you all know why she wrote this book, which I realized later wasn't until I really got to the end of the book, and then I was reading the few pages that came up after the end of the book, that Florence was her grandmother's aunt. So it was her great great aunt, and it was her great grandmother's sister. And if I'm not mistaken, I may be though, her great grandmother, her great great grandmother, would it be, was Esther. There were a number of generations there, but she was great somehow. Esther was great. She was a great grandmother. She was a great great grandmother, whatever. But Florence was her great great aunt. I was touched to see, Judy. You'll especially be touched by this, Judy Friedman, that Castle's is mentioned.
That's
Your
right.
your local supermarket, both today and growing up. So I trust it was there when you were growing up, because if it goes, I mean, I assume that you didn't just push it back into the 1930s, but the Castle's was really there.
Yeah.
Actually, Rabbi, every reference that she made to stores, the Wagenheim's Meat Market and this one's bakery, whatever it is, Slaughter-Off's men's store, they were actual stores at the time, and I knew all their grandchildren.
Did you know Adler's Bakery?
I did not know Adler's
No.
Bakery, but I knew Wagenheim and Lischen and all that other. So she did a lot of research to actual establishments at the time.
Yeah, so she mentions, Castle's, the Breakers. Any of you remember the Breakers when there used to be kosher? I remember from a USY convention that we had one of our USY conventions at the Breakers.
Mm-hmm.
And she bought her wedding gift in Wanamaker's of blessed memory. Remember, you always said, I'll meet you at the Eagle in Wanamaker's. That was the Eagle is still there. It's just not Wanamaker's. Oh, and then the other person that she mentions is the person in the picture. Should I tell you now who it was?
Sure.
No, no, I want you to stay until the very end. By which point I'll forget to tell you who it was, so somebody's going to have to remind me to tell you who it was, okay? Because it's a whole story in itself. Uh, how did Florence actually die? So I don't know if you had this thought, but I was thinking throughout the book that Florence committed suicide. Any of you have that thought? A couple of people, yeah. Marcia, uh, yeah. Well, two Marcias. If your name is Marcia, you're agreeing with me. Marcia Friedman, Marcia Verbit. A few others are. A couple of you are saying absolutely not. Let me tell you why I was thinking that this was a suicide.
She was gay.
You know, there's a one paragraph scene on page 137. If you have your book with you and you have the same numbers that I have on my book, it's really the very end of a chapter. This is the night that Anna gets the letter from her family in Germany that they can't get out of Germany. And she is devastated by this. Florence moved to brush a tear from Anna's cheek, running her thumb along her cheekbone. Was it possible that in only 3 months of living among strangers, Anna had forgotten what it felt like to be touched? Florence lifted her head off the pillow and stared at her as if she were awaiting the response to a question Anna hadn't heard her ask. She leaned forward and kissed the spot on Anna's cheek where the tear, fat with anticipation, had sat so recently. Anna held her breath as Florence scattered several small kisses across her cheek, like tiny seeds that might take root and grow into something sturdy. Florence brushed her lips against the corner of Anna's mouth and pulled back slightly, as if watching for some signal. Did Anna want this? It was hard to know anymore. Without giving herself any more time to think, Anna lifted her head ever so slightly from the pillow and let Florence's mouth, warm and inquisitive, absorb her heartache. Now you might say, really, from that one paragraph, you were thinking that she committed suicide? What a terrible thing. Remember, folks, this is 1934. This is not 2021. So, this is a book all about secrets. It's all about secrets. Maybe Florence had her own secret that, she was lesbian. She was a lesbian. And maybe when she was at Wellesley, maybe she had the freedom to explore, with other women there.
I don't know.
So she comes home, and now she's kind of engaging with Anna. I don't think she did this, with much thought. But after it's over, maybe she thinks, well, now what's going to happen? Anna's surely going to tell my parents, what happened. What is this? The other possibility that I thought about is, as long as she remained a private citizen, who was going to know who she was or what she was? But, once you swim the English Channel, there's all kinds of stories that come out about you. Oh, now, not all of you are convinced, and that's okay. But I just want to add one more thing. I was saying to myself, this had to be the cause of her death, the suicide, because why else would the author have put this in? Does this add anything to the story? Does this tell us anything? do we need this one chapter? I thought that if it wasn't there for this purpose, that this chapter, this paragraph, is absolutely gratuitous. I don't need this knowledge. Did you need this knowledge? So anyhow, I thought this was going to lead to something, and like my phone ringing, and it didn't, which is okay. It's okay, but because it's okay, I wonder why she had to include this in the story. What was the purpose? You know, it didn't mean anything one way. Oh, there's one other thing. Did Florence really want to swim the English Channel? Indeed, it appeared that she did.
Yeah, very much so.
Uh, you know, I used to work solo. Do I have a, am I working with a partner tonight? Uh, it, the, who, who was the one who really pushed her into this? It was her father, if you remember. He trained her to become this great swimmer. And I'm also wondering, you know, before it was really going to happen, did she really want this to happen? You know, so evidently, evidently I'm wrong. Of course, I'm wrong because there's no indication that she committed suicide. But I think I'm sharing it, not to tell you, ladies and one gentleman, I want to tell you that I was wrong. No, because I think that there were indications that that seemed to point to something. And otherwise, why were they there? Okay. Oh, it's interesting also. Do you remember at the end of the book, this is very, very near the end of the book, that I think it's Joseph or maybe Esther who says, I wonder if, I think it was Joseph talking to Anna. He says, I wonder if Florence was really in love with Stuart. And I wonder if she would have really married Stuart. And do you remember what Anna says in response? She says, I don't think she says, he would never have married her because there was something else that was much more important to her. And Joseph says, what was it? And she says, she wanted to swim. That's all she wanted. She wanted to swim. So she's kind of like, she knows what the story is, but this Anna is a good person. And she keeps Florence's secret. But we'll be talking about the good and the bad of keeping a secret. Yeah, the other thing that I see that I wrote down, I have to admit, there weren't a lot of turns and twists in the book. Were there for you? Like there weren't a lot of things like, wow, I didn't see that coming. And wow, really? Wow. So, I'm reading through the whole book and I'm thinking to myself, there's got to be some wow someplace. There's got to be some, like, something that I wasn't expecting. So what was it that I wasn't expecting? Okay, that's the last thing that I have to say about this. Yeah, it's all about secrets. Does Florence have her own secret? So what are the secrets of the book? The main secret is when Florence dies, Esther decides by herself, not in consultation with anyone, that this will be too much for her daughter Fanny to deal with in giving birth to a healthy child. So this has to be kept a secret. Might it have been wise to consult the doctor? No, she knew better. She tragically lost that child, Hiram, a year before, and she could never know. She could never know. There's another secret at the end of the book. You know what the next secret is? Joseph creates a secret. Joseph's secret is that he gets rid of his son-in-law, Isaac. And you know, the truth of the matter is, Isaac was a no-goodnik. He clearly wasn't much of a husband. A father, Gussie seems to love her daddy a whole lot. So, you know, he gained the love of his daughter. Didn't work too hard in the business. Didn't really make any significant contribution. He was that guy who always was about to make it big. He was always going to strike it rich. He just needed for the next deal to come through. But the deals weren't coming through. And finally, he steals from the business. And when Joseph finds out that he steals from the business, I guess Isaac could have, you know, anticipated that he was going to be fired, and then he owed all this money to his own father, to others. You know, how is he going to go on? How is this going to work out? By the way, I think Joseph's secret is a very big mistake. Why? Well, it's a lot better than putting a bullet through his head, which evidently was his other choice. He wanted to get rid of this guy. He just wanted to get rid of him. So I guess paying him off was better than killing him off. But who owns whom at this point? Who owns whom? Does Joseph own Isaac, or does Isaac own Joseph? Isaac owns Joseph. Because even after getting whatever amount of money he gets, he can say to Joseph, you know what, buddy, I'm sorry, but I'm going to spill the beans. I want a raise. You know, another $1,000 a year. He's owed by him. So do you think that Isaac was a total louse, loser, no goodnik because he took this deal? Are you totally convinced that Isaac was a nothing? Can you either shake your head yes or no? It'll help me know what you're thinking. Huh? Do you think he was a nothing? In other words, for Isaac, it was only a matter of money. If you didn't pay him enough, he said, I'm going to stick around. But if you paid him enough, the guy was such a louse that when the price was right, he was going to take the deal and run, right? If you were Isaac's defense attorney, how would you have argued his case? And here, if you have something to share, raise your hand either electronically or just the old-fashioned way. You are now Isaac's defense attorney. You're going to speak on his behalf. No, we're not going to convict him of being just a plain louse. For money, he'll leave his wife. Defend him. Defend Isaac. Yeah, Denise, go on.
I felt that Isaac wanted so badly to succeed, to be thought of as somebody in his in-laws' eyes, that I did, even though he did lousy things, I felt a degree of pity for him.
You felt a degree of pity for him. Did you find any pity for him taking the money and running, Denise?
No.
Ah.
No.
So in terms of...
No. I felt sorry for him, you know, on a personal level.
Right.
That he was so, you know, because of his background, and he just never felt that he measured up, that he felt this way. But it doesn't justify what he did. No.
So in terms of this particular case, you would not volunteer to be his defense attorney?
No, I guess I wouldn't.
Undefensible act. Could anybody defend Isaac? Oh, you're a tough crowd. You're a tough crowd. Really? Come on. Somebody stand up and say something on Isaac's behalf. Okay, well, if you won't, I will. Um, I think that you know that people, there's a defense called entrapment. You know what that is? When people are found, like the FBI finds something about people, but they plead that the FBI didn't just see them doing it. The FBI set up the whole deal that entrapped the person in it, right? That's what entrapment is. So I think that Joseph offered him a deal that he couldn't refuse. You see, I don't think he's a bigger louse because he wouldn't take the first amount of money, but he's happy to take the big amount of money. I think that he was in a predicament that he didn't know how to get out of. And, the first deal wasn't going to really help him all that much. But as Joseph keeps raising the figure, the poor guy saying to himself, I'll never make this kind of money in my life. I'll never make this kind of money. So he takes the deal. But I, I would come to his defense as I am right now. I think it's, I think he was given a deal that he couldn't refuse. By the way, was there any part of the book that you found funny? Did you find any funny lines, funny passages in the book? No? I'm the only one? Eileen? Yeah, tell us, Eileen. You have to unmute first. Eileen, I see your lips moving, but
I got it. I got it.
okay.
Hi, sorry.
Go ahead.
I actually wanted to answer some of your other questions, if I could, about defending Isaac.
Yeah.
Wouldn't really defend him, but I would offer a little bit of a possible rationale for some of his behavior. He struck me as a very loving father for Fanny, and she seemed, not Fanny.
Gussie, yeah.
I'm sorry, what's her name?
Gussie,
yes, thank you. He seemed like a very loving father to Gussie, and that she genuinely loved him. I think I'm really reading into this, but perhaps he felt a little bit like a loser, not only because he couldn't perceive himself, well in the eyes of his in-laws, which was accurate, but I think he held himself responsible for the death of, what was the other child's name? The one who died.
Hiram, yes. Right.
Hiram's death.
Because he took his wife on the roller coaster or something.
Yes.
The bumper cars, yeah.
Right. So maybe somewhere, if someone analyzed him psychologically, he just felt like a loser. He felt like he didn't fit in with his family, and he had grief, and he had, didn't have a good self-image. So maybe he felt trapped in that way. But I thought what was wrong on Joseph's part, as well as his part, the timing, and maybe they felt it was the necessary timing, but I felt leaving Fanny at the time when she would need his support and his help with the new baby was really awful timing. But that's another story. As far as there was something else you asked that I wanted to really comment. Oh, the whale.
Just to pause there for a moment, Eileen. I think what you're saying is very valid and very valuable. The poor guy does see himself as a loser. He wants to make more than his father, the failed former yeshiva teacher in Europe, is making. But he doesn't. He goes to Florida and he comes home. And then he has to walk from Vineland to Atlantic City. He doesn't have a dime in his pocket. How could he not see himself as just a loser? And now, on top of seeing himself as a loser, he's now a bigger loser and a thief. Right. For this guy to say, I better get out of town for everybody's sake, is not, I don't think it's a stretch, Eileen. I think you're I think you're onto something. Go on. You had something else.
No, that's okay. Thanks for commenting on my comment. Um, uh, Thanks for your commentary. So anyway, when you were asking about a wow moment, this was a negative wow moment, but when I wasn't aware of this, that, and again, I don't know whether it put Judaism or Rabbi in a bad light or not, but my negative wow moment was when I learned that the family wasn't able to sit Shiva or have the baby that they lost wasn't able to, but they didn't have a gravestone. Is that what it was? They couldn't sit Shiva for him because he died within a certain time frame that was not eligible for them to mourn him in that traditional way. And that really disturbed me. And looking back, I think Joseph said to Fanny, looking back, it was a mistake. He felt it was a mistake, that they should have been able to mourn the baby.
Yeah, and you know what? I love that about I'll confess, Joseph is my favorite character in the book.
Mhm, mhm,
Imperfect, but my favorite character in the book.
mhm.
And when he sat by his daughter's bed, and he apologized for
Yeah,
some things, including that. You know, in
right.
1934, for a parent, a father, to be able to apologize to his daughter
Yeah,
is a very, very big thing. That Joseph is a good man, not a perfect man. In fact, I'm going to take umbrage with something that he does with this that he does, but he's a good man. He's got a good heart. Uh,
yeah,
so let me just
I
say
agree.
that what they did
Mhm.
was according to Jewish law. They follow
Okay,
Jewish law. It's 1934. You know, you still have the days when a mother has a child who marries out and they sit Shiva for him. So this
right,
is
right.
1934. When I
Okay,
was
I'm
in
gonna, I'm
rabbinical
gonna,
school, when I was in rabbinical school
Mhm.
in the late 70s, early 80s, uh, we were we were taught the importance of marking the death of an unborn child or a stillborn child.
Mhm.
That this could not be swept under the rug. That this is a tragedy
Mhm.
for the parents, for the mother and the father, and that we absolutely should provide a ritual experience. And thank God, I don't know why, but in the last many years, I haven't been called upon
Thank God.
to deal with this situation. But I did early on, even when I was still in rabbinical school. It happened a few times.
Yeah.
And I think in those days, people would call like a very young rabbi to do something that was avant-garde, you know, like wasn't the traditional thing. So I would get the calls, and let me tell you, it breaks your heart to see a little casket. You
Mm,
know, it's a little
mm.
styrofoam casket, but people need that to mourn.
Absolutely.
And this is Esther's big mistake that she makes with Florence. She says, you know, for this, look, you know, if we knew that she needed to keep it a secret in order for the next child to be born, okay, I think we'd all go along with it. But she just keeps it a secret that Florence died. And you know who else she kept it a secret from? She kept it a secret from herself. If you read the author's notes after the novel, she writes that Florence never spoke about that Esther never spoke about Florence again. It was as if she never existed. And you know what? That's just, it's wrong. You know, if you talk about wrong to the memory of somebody, to
Mm,
then act like your daughter never existed,
mm,
that's not how. And what's so interesting that given that Esther never spoke about her daughter, that it does come down as family
mhm,
lore, and they would tell the
mhm,
story so much that now you have a great niece who writes a book about it. You know, it's
mhm,
kind of like finally justice comes.
mhm.
So we know that there was somebody named Florence who died tragically, whatever the cause of her death was. She dies tragically. But Esther uh, doesn't. Yeah, you know, let's just wipe it under the rug. It never really happened. Yes, Sherry, go on.
Rabbi, when I read that, I mean, I come, from an Eastern European family, um, from the shtetl, and they came over with an awful lot of superstitions and beliefs. It didn't strike me. I mean, I did agree with it, but I could absolutely hear one of my aunts saying something like that if their daughter was pregnant and it was close to the end of the pregnancy, because, there's a lot of folk beliefs tied up with that.
Yeah, I don't think it was so much superstition at this point. I think she made a medical decision. I think she truly believed that the shock of her sister being dead would cause a spontaneous abortion.
Abortion, right.
Um, and I want to talk a little bit about how I'm not a fan of secrets. I do not like secrets. You like secrets?
Mm-mm.
I do not like secrets. And I really believe that in any given family, secrets are an unhealthy phenomenon. Keeping the secret from so and so, I don't think it ever ends well. It's like having a scab that you can't touch, but you want to. That secret is a very difficult thing. And I think what Esther did to her daughter Fanny may have been worse than her knowing that her sister died. And what was that was worse? She lay in the hospital for 2 months feeling that her sister hated her guts because the last encounter that they had was a terrible disagreement. And she really believes that her sister went off to France to swim the English Channel and her sister forgot about her. I don't know. Can that cause a spontaneous abortion any more or less than the death of a loved one? Florrie, not Florence. Wait. Florrie, you're our resident therapist. What's your take on secrets in a family? Do you think they serve a family? And of course, you can't generalize 100%.
No, it's very destructive. It causes distrust. You can, because somehow a secret does get found out somehow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it destroys trust in the relationship. And it's very diminishing to the person who the secret was kept from. Fanny agonized. The poor thing, she was alone in her home, in the hospital room. They had to keep the room dark. Such craziness I never heard, And so she was just so isolated and into her own thoughts and her own fears of losing, whether or not she will have this baby and whether she'll come to term and the baby will be healthy. It was cruel what they did to her. It's my feeling. Yeah. And then,
Florrie, so I think you said the magical words. The secrets are never held forever. Mm-hmm. They always become public knowledge within wherever the secret's being kept. People learn about the secret. You can almost count on it. You can bank on it. Mm-hmm. I wonder what Fanny's reaction was when she learned that her sister actually died a couple of months ago or a month ago, whatever it was, and Esther kept the secret from her. And she suffered there for that period of time. Did she ever hold it against her mom? I don't know. We don't know. But, that was enough to break up a relationship. Mm-hmm. And how long did the secret of what Joseph did with Isaac, how long did that secret remain? So after Fanny was done with her mother, maybe now she's done with her father too. How dare you? I mean, really, this is a case of how dare you? How dare you, without talking to me, you assuming what's best for me and telling my husband to leave me? buying him off to leave me. And I'm raising, now a little infant along with my daughter, my other daughter. And I assumed that my husband hated me. Look, she wasn't so much in love with him. She said that the last 8 years of her life were like a dim, image, that she was just stuck in this. But to be put into a position where you're not making decisions out of your own life and your father's making those decisions, um, what was her response when she found out? And I think it's fair to say, Florrie, she found out, right? She found out at some point. Oh, I just have to tell you, Judy, you're on. Yeah, go on, Judy. I'll save what I had.
What I found interesting is that the parents made the decision not to tell Florence about Fanny rather than discussing it with her husband. I can't imagine in today's, for me anyway, for me to make a decision about my girls without discussing it with her husband. The parents let's say the rights of the parents superseded the husband, and you don't even have that discussion. Like the family unit is Florence and her husband.
You mean
Fanny
Fanny,
and husband, that family unit, and Esther didn't even discuss it with Isaac. And that I was like, whoa.
Right. Well, they made a decision that Isaac was a nothing. And
But not respecting him.
no, right. Right. They had no respect for him because they decided that he was a nothing. So instead of helping him become a something, they made it very clear to him that they thought he was a nothing. It
Right.
says in the beginning he used to go to Shabbat dinners, but he felt so uncomfortable there that he stopped going. He knew that he was terribly disliked by his in-laws. Now, in their eyes, he became even more of a nothing because he didn't come for the Shabbat dinners. I want to tell you about a secret. And I hate secrets. I hate secrets. I hate surprise parties. You like surprise parties? Did anybody ever throw a surprise party for you? And you walk in and everybody goes, surprise! Did you love it? Was that like the greatest moment? Okay, so here's what happened. It's May of 1982. I'm close to graduating from rabbinical school. It's going to be on June 13th. And nobody in the synagogue is doing anything in honor of my graduation. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. So in those days, after every Shabbat morning service, I used to go to my parents for Shabbat lunch. So I did it that Shabbat also, and it so happened my sister was there that day. And I was really saying to my mom, and my sister's there as well, but I said, I had just moved into a new house on Bedlington Place in Village Shires, a country place. So I have a new house, I'm very proud of that, 1982. And I said to my mother, I said, Mom, I said, I think that the day of the graduation, I want to have an open house for the congregation. Anybody who would like to come, I'd love for them to celebrate with me my graduation from rabbinical school. My mother says to me, don't do it. She says, nobody's interested in coming. Really? She said, don't bother doing it. Nobody's interested in coming. Now, I wasn't sharp enough to really figure this whole thing out, but you see, my mother was caught off guard. And where my mother was caught off guard was my mother was told the secret that the synagogue had planned a surprise party for August. For August. This is May, June, July, August, right? So, I remember leaving my parents' house. My sister was there that day. I'm getting in my car, driving back to the Pathway Apartments, 9900 Bustleton Avenue. And I'm saying to myself, wow, I've been with the synagogue 5 years. Nobody's interested. They're not, clearly, I figure my mom is right. They're not creating any celebration. Judy, you were at, where are you now, Judy? Keep moving. Judy, you and David were at the graduation, right? Because I was allowed to invite a few people. But otherwise, so, and then my mother says nobody's interested. Well, she must know better than I do, you know? So here's what finally happened. But I want to tell you, last night as I'm thinking through this again, I think something else happened. But here's the story that comes to me. I'm told, and I don't remember when this was. I don't remember if it was June, July. Somebody told me that the synagogue was planning a party. It was a surprise party. And the reason why they were planning the surprise, and the reason why they were now telling me is because they were afraid that I could have had a wedding scheduled for that Saturday night. And when they would have tried to get me in such and such a place, I would have said, listen, I'm sorry, I have a wedding. You know, like I can't make it. This is what I was told, right? And I always accepted that as the story. And now I'm wondering if my mother told folks, listen, guys, the poor guy is beside himself. He's like graduating from school and he thinks nobody really cares. So they decided to tell me, and that was the story that and I don't know, because I never questioned my mother about it. That was the story that I was told. Fine. Now I knew. But you know what? If I had not brought this up to my mom that day, that I was going to have my own party and she had to say to me, nobody really cares, I could have gone on until August thinking nobody really cared. Right? I don't know. Surprises are more hurtful than I think helpful. I'm an anti-surprise person. I don't like surprises. Oh, I should just tell you that the thing that I did laugh at something in the story, and you'll be disappointed in me that I laughed at this, but you know, you would like me to be much more empathic, but let me see if I can find exactly where it is. Yeah. Okay, I can't. Okay, so here's the deal. Isaac has the bright idea that he's going to sell Stewart on buying some of the shares in the deal in Florida, right? You remember that? And he takes him out on a boat. And Isaac never gave Stewart the time of day. And now Isaac is there and he's selling Stewart, who he knows has an old man who is like as rich as anybody else in Atlantic City, that he should invest in him. Do you remember what happens? Remember what happens at that moment? I have to tell you, I laughed out loud. A big wave came and knocked Isaac out of the boat. And if Stewart wouldn't have saved him, and it wasn't an easy save, he would have drowned. Well, I didn't. I laughed before the would have drowned part, so that started making it serious. But this is a guy. Do you call him a schlemazel or a schlemiel? You know, this guy has no luck at all. He finds a rich guy. He wants to sell him on investing in his property and his deal. And right when he's ready for the punchline, the closing act, he gets thrown overboard. Poor guy. Poor guy. Okay. There were some I saw some people wanting to jump in. So yeah, go on, Eileen. Go on.
Another big secret was Joseph not telling Esther that he had been engaged, and that was so many years ago, and obviously that really made her upset and I guess angry. And that was another big secret.
Say that again, Eileen.
Joseph withheld from Esther that he had been engaged, and he broke off his engagement.
Yes. Right.
I think that was a big secret that upset her and angered her.
Thank you. And Hattie told her right up front, You know, Esther, there was a gal that I left back in Germany, and I thought she meant everything to me. But now that I've met you,
Mm,
Esther, I never want to turn back. You are the love of my life, which was
right.
the truth. As it turns out, he really knew when he left that he was never going to marry Inez. Right?
Yeah.
That comes out later. But yeah, but he keeps it a secret, and it comes back to bite him. And then she wonders, can I trust this guy about anything? Just what
Right.
Florrie was saying before. Can I trust this guy about anything? I want to ask you, what did you think about the love story of Stuart and Anna? Did it make sense to you? Was it a love story? What did you think about it? Were you taken by it? Were you happy for them? Did it not really register for you? Was it contrived? Hey, folks that are in name only here, I didn't really actually realize because I'm reading off of my iPad, which is part of my problem, my technical problem here. But it's a long story. But now that I just went to put it down, so if any of you who are in name only would like to turn your camera on, please do. Why not? Yeah. I'm sorry
Rabbi,
I didn't invite you before. Yeah.
in Rabbi, in answer to your question,
Yeah, Hillary.
I,
Yes.
I think Stuart was using Anna as a replacement for Florence. That he liked her okay, but he really wanted Florence, and he was going to try to mold Anna into Florence.
And what do you think, Hillary, Anna's real feelings were about Stuart?
I think she wanted to be able to bring her parents to America. And again, she liked him. He was fine. And he was going to be the person who was going to help her do that. His father had the money. And if she married him, it would all work out.
So it's like a double mistake.
I think so.
Yeah. So he just coughed up $5,000 for really no good reason. I mean, he had never actually mourned enough Florence's
Right.
death, and a month later he's in love again. Yeah. What do you say about that?
Yeah.
It's too little, too fast, or too
Yep.
much, too fast, something like that. Too much, too fast. Yeah. So, any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Denise
Yes.
has her hand up.
Denise, I'm sorry. Go on, Denise.
That's okay. I take issue with saying that the 1930s background didn't really resonate with you in Atlantic City. Not that I was around in the Atlantic City in the 1930s, but I felt like I could see it and feel it. And there were some, well, I don't know if the word is anachronism, but there were some things that just don't compute today. For example, at one point, a nurse offers Fanny a cigarette, and Fanny is the pregnant mother. Of course, there were the exclusionary hotels, of which Stuart's father is the king of them. And there were weird amusements on the pier, like they had exhibits of premature babies. And also there's the background on the Dione quintuplets. So, and I don't know what you call them, because I grew up in North Jersey, so we didn't go to Atlantic City. But the rolling carts that they had on the boardwalk, I mean, I just could really feel it. I thought the author did a great job with that background.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah. Yeah, I don't mean to criticize the author. I think this was her first novel. I think for a first novel, this was splendid. I think it was really splendid. It was engaging. I never felt like, oh my God, I got to go back to that book that I have to give a review on. No, I was more than happy reading it. it flowed, and it engaged me as a reader. So yeah, I don't mean to be overly critical about it. I thought it was yes. Eileen, was your hand? I see Libby, your hand up. Eileen, your hand was up before. So Eileen and then Libby. Libby, just unmute so you'll be ready to. Yeah.
When they went to lunch at the Knife and Fork restaurant, I remember before the casinos in Atlantic City, the Knife and Fork was like an exclusive restaurant. And when my husband and I finally did go there, it was very disappointing. But
So
that brought back a memory to me.
So I don't know if it was at the same location it is today, but there's the Knife and Fork at Albany Avenue, right where the
The
monument
original
is.
one was down by the high school, because my grandmother lived around
The
there.
That's the original location.
That's it.
Yeah,
That
it
is
was
the
by the
original
high school.
location.
Yeah, it's where David and I had our first date.
Wow. Wow. You see,
Yeah.
love happens at the Knife and Fork.
There you go.
It's a funny kind of a building. The facade looks like it's two-dimensional, but
Well, she talked about that, about the shape of it,
yeah.
and how it reminded her of Europe.
So let me tell you that there is also a Roth funeral home in Atlantic
Ross
City.
Goldstein.
Well, now it's Roth Goldstein, but
Yeah.
it was Roth for most of its. And I did a funeral there maybe 25 years ago, and it was a hellhole. This Roth funeral home. It was a first class mess. The reason why it was a mess is that in Atlantic City, the tradition is not to have funerals in the funeral home. People have them in the synagogue or graveside. So the funeral home, Judy, you know where the inlet is? It's like
Yeah.
Captain Starnes used to be there.
Yeah.
So that's where the funeral home, it still is there. So, so then Goldstein's went in with them. It's called Roth Goldstein. And I had a service there more recently and they did fix the place up. So it's, but yeah, there was a Roth funeral home. And you know this rabbi who they said he was adequate? He drove them to the cemetery. What rabbi drives mourners to a cemetery? Are you kidding me? This guy was a saint.
They didn't have limos back then.
But the rabbi has to drive him? Really?
He did a mitzvah.
On the other hand, at the last minute, he says to Joseph, he says, Joseph, did you prepare a hesped? Which means a eulogy.
Yeah.
Which means he didn't prepare anything. So maybe he was only adequate.
Rabbi,
He drives you, but he doesn't give you a eulogy. Well, look, nobody's perfect. Nobody can do everything, you know? He's a good driver, not a good eulogizer. So, Libby, go on.
Well, there's only one Rabbi Pearlstein. You
Yeah, but
know.
I've never driven any. I've driven people crazy, but not to the cemetery. Yeah. Go on.
I found that I was disappointed with the abrupt ending, and I would like to hear what your opinion is about that.
So just say what the abrupt ending is.
just ended.
Oh wait, no, you
Yeah,
reread
it just ended. I was reading it on my Kindle. So when you read a book with pages, you see there aren't any more pages left. But I was reading on the Kindle merrily along, and I was building and building, and I thought, okay, now we're going to have this long-awaited scene. We're going to have Esther tell Fanny the terrible news, and then not only that, about her husband leaving. I mean, all of this was not tied up with a bow at the end. It just, it was over. Yeah. And I did a double take. And was anyone else surprised or disappointed, or are we supposed to come to our own conclusion? No.
Do you find, Libby, that in most novels, things are tied up with a bow and everything becomes resolved, and now you know whether they lived happily ever after or they didn't live happily ever after?
No, of course not. But I guess I was assuming that this would end with at least some kind of closure.
Mhm.
I didn't expect it to end happily, but I thought there'd be some kind of closure, and I didn't have that.
So I think it's a fair point. It's a good point, Libby. Listen, if there is any kind of closure, it's that Dr. Rosenfeld comes and says, your daughter gave birth to a healthy baby, and they're both fine. So you go, thank God, that's what the whole book is about. The daughter's pregnant. There's a secret that they're kept because the other daughter died. So it's fine. But the reality is that that's just the beginning of the story.
Mhm.
That's just the beginning of the story. All these other things of how do they play out? How does Fanny deal with Esther once she's told the secret? And how will she deal with her father when she learns that secret? There are a lot of loose ends. And what's also interesting, Libby, if you read the note by the author at the end, she says that when this story was told to her by the previous generations all thought the secret was a great thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And she says, I always felt it was the wrong thing to do. And she says, we never came to an agreement on it. So she says, in a family where you can't come to an agreement on something, I knew it had to be the basis of a good book. Right? Yeah, I think, maybe there's going to be a sequel.
Yeah.
But, there's an old saying, leave them wanting more.
Right.
So it ends, click, that's it. And you don't know what happens after that.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. Nina, go on. Oh, and then Eileen. Eileen, you also have a different colored hand. It kind of blends in with but I see it now. You're on after Nina. Yeah.
So this is I guess the 20th summer that I've been here. And of course I spent a lot of time here, and I am the Jewishness here. This city at one time had the largest Jewish population of any city its size. And where's Judy? Judy's there somewhere. I have met, say, you're the second book review you're the second person, the second clergy sort of person that I've had listened to a book review on of this book. It's very popular with people down here who are residents here.
I'm sure.
Very popular. But I have met so many Atlantic Cityites who lived here, and they leave because they need to go raise their kids, like in Linwood, or they go to Philadelphia or whatever, but they always come back to the island because they love it here. And the stories that they tell, the Jewish stories that they tell, and I've gotten into the synagogue here, which was Beth Judah. Now it's the Rebbitzin from the Reform part of Beth Judah did the book review this was last year, Mrs. Geller.
Yeah.
And she's marvelous book review person anyway. But most of the people that were on that were Atlantic Cityites that had lived here. They knew the doctor, they knew this one, they knew Judy, just like you do. And I have marveled at this place. In fact, I went in the Ventnor Library. There's a whole floor on the second floor of all Atlantic City history. I took out a number of books. You saw them when you were in my house. I took them out. I was looking at stuff, whatever. And you go to the synagogue here, these people who belong to this knew these people, and they talk about these people, they knew their kids and whatever. So the culture here, the Jewish culture here is so rich.
Yeah.
It amazes me. And, so I read the book only because I wanted to know about the Jewishness here. And I was looking up things and finding out who was this and who was that. Judy, everybody I meet who's Atlantic Cityite, they know everybody else. It's amazing.
No, I get it, Nina. And you know what? There was one thing, Judy, when you said that all the references were correct. So I'm just wondering, she says that there was a Road of Shalom that was the conservative synagogue, and there was something else that was the Orthodox synagogue.
Well, it's Orthodox now.
But Road of Shalom is in Ventnor, and it's an Orthodox synagogue. I wonder
it's on my corner.
She got them confused. Yeah, it's right around. It's right near you, Nina. Yeah. Okay, Eileen, go on.
Okay, a lot of things I was thinking have been said, but I found this book very depressing. I couldn't wait to finish it because I was depressed most of the time that I was reading it. And I found the end, the last maybe 30 pages, absolutely contrived. Like, okay, now I'm going to end it, and I have to kind of end it on some kind of up note because it's been so depressing. And the only up note is, fortunately, the baby was born healthy, and Anna found love or whatever with Stuart. But another thing I wanted to say is this could be a whole topic, is secrets. I know that my family was full of secrets. I mean, big secrets. My mother's oldest sister didn't find out till she was married that her father, the other three sisters, really not her full sisters, because her mother died in childbirth, and she never knew that until they thought, well, of course we were going to tell you before you go, when you were going to get married. What did this have to do with her getting married? And right before I got married, my father told me he was married before. Well, it was, you know what? He told me that, but somebody told me when I had a summer job, came up to me, who knew my father's family, and she told me. And I just thought, look, I'm 17 years old. I know my father was never married before. You know, she's crazy. And she saw my name because I had taken out a file and I had to leave my name. And she recognized the last name. And she grew up near my father's family. And she came over talking. She knew all their names. And she mentioned his wife, Anna. I said, no, my mother's name is Sylvia. She said, no, Anna. He married Anna. And no, I didn't believe it. And then right before I got married, my father tells me I was married before. What did it have to do with it? But everything was a secret. And I bet you everybody's family has secrets, some big ones.
So, wow. And it just makes me think that in those days, whatever those days means, it's before our days, right? Those days, people did not tell an adopted child that they were adopted.
No.
Right?
Right.
Never. And that was the wisdom. That was, you don't tell them that they're adopted. They're going to think they're second-class citizens. And then somehow, things turned around. But yeah, keep it a secret. Don't tell them. They don't need to know.
It was a different world.
They find out.
Rabbi, it was really a different world then.
Yeah, and what they'll say about us 50 years from now. They'll say, boy, what were they thinking? Those goofballs in 2021. Didn't they know anything? The way they lived. No, so Eileen, I'm just interested. So, of course, Florence dies right in the beginning. So that's depressing enough. But what else about the book was depressing for you? What was it?
Well, I felt very struck by how Fanny was in the hospital wondering and even asking about Florence, and how this was making it more difficult for her, and how it was really Esther that was so sure and orchestrating this whole lie that had tentacles, and the nurses and the doctor and then the secret Shiva and all that. And I don't know, maybe it's my background with secrets that I didn't like the secret. I don't think it was the right thing to do. And it just, carried me through the whole book.
It's troubling. It's terribly troubling. And as it turns out, everybody in Atlantic City knew that Florence Adler died in the ocean, right? Everybody knew it. They had that that celebration that day when people were swimming. What was it? And then they all got around together and they had a moment of silence for Florence Adler. People weren't saying what happened. They all knew what the story was. So that's how big of a secret it was. Yeah, the more you want something to be a secret, the more people will know about it. The more people will know about it. Okay, just a couple of final comments. Each comment has been great. Um, let's see, Denise, you should have the final comment, given that this is.
Well, it isn't very profound.
No,
It's
okay,
just,
go
you know,
on.
along with the idea of secrets, I was thinking of when I was a kid, thinking of like the late 50s, early 60s. Somebody in the family had cancer, and they would say, "Shh, don't say anything. He doesn't know." And I can remember thinking, "What do you mean he doesn't know?" Like this poor person is obviously going to find out that he's horribly ill, but that's how it was even then. I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but I did.
Denise, here's something where, I'm sorry. Rose, did you want to say something? I saw your hand just went up.
My mom,
Yeah, go on, Rose.
am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
My mom in the 60s was very sick, and she had been to the doctor I went with her because I was the only available person, and we would say she had the big C. It was, my mother wouldn't understand that. So we said she had the big C because if she did find out and she tried to kill herself. So, because I guess in the old country, there was certainly no cure at that time. So I understand the big C was a big, big secret.
Yeah, so thanks, Rose. So, Denise, when I was in rabbinical school, um, we were taught that you have to be open and honest with everybody about their illness. Somebody has cancer, and even worse, if it's terminal, they have they have every right to know that their time is limited, so they can get their affairs together, and they have to be told. I haven't maintained that position. Um, I think that there are some people that the family realizes they might be better off not knowing. Now, am I contradicting everything that I've said up until now? Maybe. I'll have to give this more thought because it's a secret. Um, but sometimes somebody knows that you know your loved one. You know if they're going to be able to handle it, or it's going to totally destroy whatever number of days that they have. Yeah, I think it's a case by case basis. But after railing and railing and railing against secrets here, I think that there's a moment where sometimes you don't share everything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Uh, so, folks, thank you so much. Um, great to be together. I just want to tell you that we did a book review on Zoom last year, right? And I was totally fine with it. Like that was our life. We were Zoomers. We were Zoomers. But now, I'm used to speaking and seeing people live and in person. You know, like Debbie, I saw you at Rachel's wedding. That was live. We were there. See people at services Friday night, Shabbat morning. Once you taste the real thing, Zoom doesn't do it. So You know what? We gotta find a way. I mean, it was great being with you tonight. This is what we needed to do. This was too soon for us to hold this in the synagogue. This was just too soon.
Right.
We all know that. But once we know how the real deal feels, we gotta get back to it. We gotta get back to it. So
We'll look forward to next year.
amen.
Who was in the picture?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Fine.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Rabbi. It was good. It was very good. Enjoyable.
Rabbi, who was in the picture?
Oh, yeah.
Who's in the picture?
Oh, oh, okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you, Hillary. I would have totally forgotten. Okay. So I'll give you a hint and you will get it right
Looks
away.
like Betty
Okay?
Davis.
That's
You ready
right,
for the
like
hint?
Betty Davis.
Looks like Betty Davis.
No. Okay, you just saw her again? You want to take one more look? You saw who it is?
Tell us.
Okay, here comes the hint. To tell the truth.
Kitty Carlisle.
Kitty
Kitty
Carlisle.
Carlisle.
yeah.
Oh, right. She
Yeah.
was Jewish. Yes, yes.
Kitty Carlisle was
Yes.
Jewish.
Yes.
Ah,
Do you remember how she comes up in the book?
No.
No.
So Anna says to Stuart, he says, "You go on, Arlene. You look like you." Go on.
I think he said, you know, the comment is made that like everybody falls for Stewart.
Yeah, you could have any woman
right.
you
But
want in
not
Atlantic
Kitty
City.
Carlisle. Yeah.
Right. And then he
Yeah,
said,
right.
Yeah,
Not Kitty
couldn't get her
Carlisle.
attention.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
remember as a kid watching To Tell the Truth,
Yeah.
and I always wondered, well, like what did this woman ever do that gets her on To Tell the Truth? Like, is she a professional, game
She
show?
was married to some famous playwright, no?
Well, she was also,
A writer.
in her own right,
Yes.
a model and an actress.
Right.
And a columnist.
So she was, and so she was in Atlantic City then, because she had a gig there. She was singing in some, some pier someplace. I don't know. But I thought, wow, there's a name from the past.
Really?
So I couldn't help but Google Kitty Carlisle. Like, really? She was a singer? Well, she was more than a singer. Look at her. Look at her then.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
Who was she married to?
I forget it.
I'm gonna look it up.
Google it.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
Google it.
before we leave, I have a question for you. Do you
But it was a
remember?
producer, I think. A producer. She was married to.
It was some noted.
It was
person.
Moss Hart.
Moss Hart.
Moss
Oh,
Hart.
that's right. That's right.
Moss Hart. Yeah.
Moss Hart.
Yeah.
Rabbi.
Thank you, Hillary. Thank you. You saved the day.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a
Thank
question
you.
for you, Rabbi.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah.
Do you remember, Rabbi, on our street growing up, that one of our neighbors swam the English Channel? They lived in between you and I. I
Wow.
think their last name was the Cohens, and it was the son. And he was in training for swimming the English Channel.
He was in the Navy.
Well, I believe he actually did swim. So that was my big fascination with the book.
You're kidding me.
Swim
I
that?
never knew that. Why didn't anybody ever tell me?
I think
It was a secret.
There was Harriet, and her father was a cab driver. Is that who you're talking about?
this was the one who I think that he worked for Whitman's Chocolate. You're thinking of the Abrams. This is
The Abrams. That's what I'm thinking of. Yes,
no,
yes.
this
The
is the
Abrams.
Cohens.
The Cohens? There was a Cohen on the street?
I think they were Fran's next door neighbors. I'll have to ask Fran.
There were
But
friends next door?
from what I remember, he was in training and swam the English Channel. And it was like, to me, it's just mind blowing that someone could swim for 12 hours straight.
I can't believe nobody ever told me. All I cared about was playing wall ball, wire ball, and step ball, and box ball. Nothing else really interested me. That's wow.
Yeah.